All right, let's get going, guys. Let me start by introducing myself and Mindmaven. My name is Patrick Evers. I am the founder and CEO of Mindmaven. And Mindmaven is a coaching organization that focuses on helping leaders, executives in particular, reach their fullest abilities, follow or pursue their vision by doing one thing, and that is focusing on relationships. And that's sort of what's so unique about our approach. And the reason we're doing that is very simple. You probably all will agree with me that nobody has ever reached their fullest potential without help from others. And it's really interesting to see how few people actually spend time focusing on relationships as they are pursuing their dreams. We do that with a very unique way. We found 3 superpowers that you have to develop, and we call them leverage, intent, and fellowship. Leverage is very simple. We help people free up to 10 hours a week by becoming better in how you delegate things to your assistant, to your EA. The intent area is basically just getting more intentful with your time allocation, become more proactive, especially with all that time that we free up, so that you focus on those things that move the needle most and aren't staying in the reactive trap. And the last thing is fellowship. Fellowship is the idea of this notion of relationships. It's about getting people to want to join your vision, then follow you, preferably through hell and back. It's very important for many of our startup CEOs that people really develop this almost irrational loyalty towards them. And then, of course, how can you leverage your network, the people that know you, who want to see you succeed in such a way that you can actually achieve your vision. That's basically what we do. But you probably are asking, well, hey, why is Mindmaven qualified or great at teaching working from home? Well, you'd be surprised. The answer is very easy. Mindmaven has been running its business 100% remote for over a decade. And we've learned a lot through mistakes, a lot through other things. And we started teaching people how to do it. And so we've gotten very good at that. And then the second thing is working successfully from remote, as you'll see very soon, has a lot to do with relationships, right? And so it's about connections. And of course, that's our bread and butter. That's where we think we're the best at. And so that makes us, I think, hopefully very good at talking about this. And so let's talk about the challenge that I see when you work from home, right? The biggest challenge that people have is that you have to stay happy. And that's what a lot of people end up struggling with. Many of you guys are working from home, maybe for the first time right now, and you have this giddiness or this honeymoon phase where it's kind of cool and so on and so forth. But the difference between working a little bit from home and now for the foreseeable future from home is that you have to really change your approach to it. And so the 2 success factors that we think you have to be long-term successful in working from home is that you need to stay feeling connected and you need to feel productive. And you might ask, okay, why is that? Why are they so important to be successful working from home? Well, let me walk you through some scenarios here real quick. If we're looking at productive, if you don't feel productive, certain things will happen, right? Maybe you're not productive because you're a little distracted. It's nice at home. There's certain comfort creatures you are going to, use more or get into more. You start feeling less productive. The pressure increases. You're going to have feelings of guilt, and you will probably end up working A, harder, and B, longer. And so all of a sudden, what used to be a nice 8 to 9 hour day of work with a nice clip because you left and went home ends up becoming 10 hours, 12 hours, maybe even 14 hours. And the funny thing is, if we were to just time your time of what you actually worked at home, you might actually only have worked 8 to 9 hours, but it doesn't feel that way. And that is the key thing. And so all of a sudden you start resenting working from home because your life feels crappier because you feel like you're working all the time, right? So that's, and that's going to unleash a lot of very unpleasant feelings that we need to learn to avoid. Talking about feeling connected, that's even simpler, right? If you're not feeling connected, you're going to get a sense of feeling isolated, and isolated leads to various degrees of outcomes, either a mild sense of loneliness, all the way to various degrees of severity around actual depressions. And that is something we need to take extremely successful. And the problem is, most likely, people will fail at both of those things. It's not easy to make those things happen when you're working from home. And when pressure and isolation goes up, the problem is that unhappiness comes along with it. And if you are unhappy at home having to work, you're going to have the next few months being your living hell. And we absolutely want to avoid that. So we came up with a bunch of tools how to overcome that. And that's what I want to present to you guys today. Hope it's going to be an interesting ride. And where I want to start with is obviously staying connected. And I want to take us back in time and talk a little bit about the power of relationships. Why are relationships so important? There's a study that Harvard started in 1939, and it's one of the longest studies ever done, and it's focused on finding the key to long-term happiness and fulfillment. And you can probably guess it. What's the result that they find out? Well, the result was very clear. The message was absolutely direct, and it says, good relationships keep us happy and healthier, period. It's one of the key factors. Or in other words, and this is, I think, the best way to put it, thanks to Sean here, he said, the quality of our life is directly proportional to the quality of our relationships, right? And when I'm talking about life, I'm talking about everything, the emotional, the physical, and the mental aspects of our life. And so this is important. We need to keep that in mind. And here is the big however. And the however is that if we are under threat, if people attack us, if we feel hurt, or even if we feel embarrassed, what is our natural reaction? What most of us do? We retreat, right? We go into our cave. We lock ourselves up in our cocoon, and we sever all of the relationships that we have quite dramatically. It's a normal reaction. That's what we think we have to do, but it is exactly the wrong thing we should do. We need to do the counterintuitive thing and basically reach out and connect more, and in those times of threat. And the problem that I see, and I'm seriously very concerned, is that we have currently a threat that is hitting us at the national level, and it's going to be causing us to retreat as we're doing right now, and we're going to lose connectivity to people, and it's going to make us absolutely miserable. I think it's actually the bigger threat to our society than the virus itself. Now, happiness is one issue. The other issue is not even more surprising, and that is that Harvard did another study where they looked at their students and categorized them into students that are really dedicated. They said, I'm in Harvard, I'm going to do my very best, I'm only going to study, I'm going to be super, super disciplined. And then they had kids that studied well, but also had a healthy dose of social interactions. And the funny thing is, consistently, those with social interactions ended up performing better in
Patrick,
class.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second here. Our presentation's black. Can you try moving the animation either forward or backward to get it back on the screen?
Oh, yeah.
Ah, there we are. Thank you. I will disappear again.
All right. Is it working? I mean, I'm not doing anything right now, but...
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, good. Connor, you're on mute. That's why I didn't hear you. Okay, so let me continue. The point is that those kids performed better because they kept on some sort of social connectivity. And so we're just about to enter into an epidemic of isolation because we're doing this social distancing. And even though we just started, it's going to probably continue for a while. And all of those things are right things that I've listed here. You got to do it. And please, everybody, stay at home. Don't meet with people in larger groups. Stay away 6 feet and all of that. So it's good advice. But, and this is really important, is it's called social distancing, not just distancing. Most people are practicing just distancing. And so what we believe is the key word in social distancing is social, because I think you need to be really wildly social when social distancing. And so what I want to do now is talk to you about how we can do this. And I'm going to start off with looking a little bit at the changes we can make in the workspace. And the first question, or the first thing we need to talk about, is we need to understand, how do we communicate? How do we establish a sense of connections? We do that through interactions, and interactions are no other means than communicating with people. So we need to obviously continue to communicate with people, and to do that skillfully, we need to understand what drives that. And communication is made out of three things, right? The words we choose, that's the content, the tone of our voice, how we're delivering it, and then of course all of the visuals cues, particularly the facial expressions, because that's what we recognize most. This stuff is actually not stuff I came up with, but there's professor called Albert Merberein. He was at UCLA. And basically what he did is he was able to evaluate the relative terms of importance that we have in terms of these three channels. And you won't be surprised what he found out. What he found out is that only 7% counts for the words that we choose, the content we choose. 38% is the tone, and 55% are the visual, body language, facial expressions. And what this really means, just to make it clear and that you understand it, it means that when I'm communicating with you and I'm in person with you, 100% of what I'm perceiving has these weights. I will give more weight to the visual, 55%, than, for example, the word that I choose. And this is the reason why we like working together in an office. That's why we like the physicality of our work world. That's why we like doing meetings, and that stuff is now being taken away from us. And so we need to learn how to compensate. And so let's get to the pragmatics here. The first tip that I have for you, the first advice is very, very simple. Make it a rule. Every single meeting that you have should be on video. It's just that simple. Why? Because you are going to deliver high bandwidth communications, and we do that with words, tones, and body language. Things go better. That's why we like meeting in person. So let's get as close as possible to simulating the in-person meeting when we're going out there. Second thing, if you have the video on, multitasking folks will have a harder time doing it. And guys, stop multitasking. It is a myth. It doesn't exist. The only thing you're going to be doing is rapid switching, and that's not efficient. All right. The second thing that you can do is really try to gain your skills of developing a much better ability to recreate the in-person experience. And the best tip that I can have for you is basically don't look at the image of the person that you're talking to. Like I would do like this right now, right? It looks for you guys as if I'm not looking at you. It's probably that I'm looking somewhat on the chest of somebody. Now I'm looking into the camera. Many of you guys have the camera on top of your screen somewhere, right? And so you always be looking down. No, look at the green dot next to the camera, look at the camera, and you are going to deliver an experience that feels a lot more like people are talking to you. And it's surprising how well that works. So try that out. I mean, you guys see that I'm looking at you right now, I hope. All right. So let's move on. This is a little image of my setup here at home. In fact, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I have a little camera in front of my screen so that I can look at that's Connor, as you can see him. Usually my employees look a lot happier than he does. So, but I look past the camera onto the screen, and it makes Connor believe or feel like I'm looking at him, right? The other advice that I have right now, you can see I have my microphone very close to me, and that gives me that radio type of audio experience. And that is almost even more important than this tip on pictures. Make sure you have a good microphone because it makes it so much more pleasant to talk to people, and it makes it much more closer to the in-person experience. All right, so let's move on. The only thing that I would say is get your face close to the camera. That's the biggest thing that matters. So one thing that happens when we meet in person, when we work together in one office, that we have the Watercooler chat. You know what it is these ad hoc conversations that happen by accident, by happenstance, and they won't happen anymore when we work from home. So how can we go and overcome that? I have 5 little tips for you that I want to go through in rapid fire. Number 1 is like, look guys, don't let that not happen. Just make these things happen. It's going to be awkward in the beginning, but schedule them. If you schedule 10-minute, 5-minute conversations where you just quickly hop on Slack and do the Slack video, or hop on Zoom and do a Zoom video, and shoot the shit, like a chat, have a good time, right? Schedule them. Learn to schedule them in such a way so that the amount of interactions that you had in your physical world are the same amount that you have working from home. The next thing is the green room method, as we like to call it. It's just change the way you meet in your firm culturally. Typically people do 60 minutes. I highly recommend going down to 50 minutes, and then basically make the actual content of the meeting start 5 minutes into the hour. But everybody shows up at the hour. That's when the meeting really starts. And the first 5 minutes is to just have social conversations about other things. And that leads me to the next point, is do not do small talk. You're going to like, wait, what? Isn't that what you just asked me to do? yes, but no. What I mean with small talk and not doing it is go deep, please. Learn the skill of how to go deep fast. Don't talk about how the weather was and how crappy this whole working from home is and so on and so forth. And go talk about things that people want to talk about, challenges they're facing, personal interests and passions, and how they're trying to live it from home and so on and so forth. Work from home happy hours, I think you all heard about those. I think those are good. They're going to feel initially kind of awkward, but eventually they become normal. They're just 45-minute weekly gatherings where it's open, everybody can show up, and you can like chit chat with everybody in a room. And then the last tip, it's probably the weirdest tip, but I think it'll work, is just have one room in that is the virtual break room. You're taking a coffee, hop into Zoom into that room. The company can set it up as a standing link. And if somebody's there, great. If nobody's there, fine. If somebody pops up, you're like, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? How you feeling? Have those conversations, make them happen. It's really important in my view. All right, before I move on, I hope all of you guys stick around to the very end, because everybody who's still there 5 minutes to the end will get our companion material. And we've done a lot of research and put a lot of stuff into this email that we're going to be sending out. Not only that, you'll see later I have to race through a few slides, and we have 35 slides in the deck that I'm not even talking about that go a lot more deeper into it. I'll tell you when we do it. So let's move on and basically start talking a little bit more about the social side of things. How can you basically become more social? This includes, of course, your business interactions, but also your private personal interactions. And the obvious first thing we have to do is we have to go and do the outreach and move the outreach into hyper gear by increasing the amount of interactions. And as you do, first and foremost, think about how should we interact. And my advice is absolutely clear. There is do high bandwidth as much as you can. Do video calls. You can even do these video messages. I know that Andrew and another participant got a video message from me yesterday, and instead of me answering the email via email, just do that. There's this tool Loom here that works, but you can use Snagit, and you can even use Zoom recording to send those things off. It's really nice and easy. If you can't do a video call, phone calls are fine. And of course, before you not interact, send an email or send text messages. They're just not as impactful, but a text message, of course, is a lot easier to do than sending a video call. So reach out, become a lot more active. And so the most important thing about this is make it happen, right? That's what we need to make sure, is just really start interacting with people. And the simple advice I have to you is, at a minimum, reach out to one person a day that you otherwise would have not reached out to. You know, if you want to like go for the stretch goal, do it 3 times, 3 people. And so the question that you're going to be asking me right now is like, okay, who do I reach out to? And the answer is actually relatively straightforward. First of all, you'll probably, because of recency bias, go for those people with whom you have strong ties. It's the friends, the family, the more distant family, your mentors or people that helped you along, and of course your team members. And please, yes, do that. It's a good thing. Why? Because these people are already established deep connections to whom you already have a connection, and touching these people will make you feel a lot more connected, because of course people will reach out and get back to you. But don't stop there, because there's a huge part of your network that you're not touching, of people that you know. We call them your weak ties. And in fact, what research has proven over and over again, and is one of the reasons LinkedIn was created, is that some of the best value, the most interesting experiences, the most knowledge we can get from people we don't know so well, because there's less overhead. So I'm talking about reaching out to some college buddies, or old roommates that you might have had, prior co-workers, checking in with them. How you doing? You know, what's happening in your life outside of the coronavirus, right? So do that. And this is important. Remember this, when you're doing that, you're not only doing it for your own happiness. The beautiful thing about this outreach effort is that you're also touching somebody else, and you are going to make that person also connected. And with that, you are going to do a vital and important aspect of our ability as a nation to basically combat that potential threat of loneliness. All right, so the next question we should ask ourselves is, well, okay, this was all one-on-one stuff, fantastic. Can I also do group stuff like I used to do? I actually, love group things. And the answer is absolutely yes. It'll be probably a bit more awkward because it's something we're not used to, but I can promise you almost anything you can dream of can be done virtually, almost anything. The only thing you have to be aware of is that when you do group meetings, don't try to replicate necessarily what you've done in the past and bring it to the virtual world. You can try it, but more often look at like, what could I do that lends itself better to virtual things. So there's a spectrum of things you can do. Like on the ad hoc notion, you can create coffee talks, where you basically invite a few people saying, hey, do you want to meet at this point in time? Let's hop in on Google Hangout or FaceTime or whatever it is, and do this call at some point. It's casual, it's different people at different times, and it's really easy to do. On the other extreme of that spectrum, you can basically do things like actually do what you've always wanted to do, is create sort of a virtual mastermind type of meetings where you guys get together roughly the same time and you talk about a topic that you're trying to learn more about, that progresses as you meet. It's the same people, it's a small group of people, and everybody's committed to coming, talking about it. Can also have a very connecting and very rewarding experience, and all of those things is what we want to recreate. You can go create it. I got to tell you that there's so many things we can do in a group setting, and some of those things you're going to nod your head and say, no way. But I can tell you, each of these things I've seen happen and they work, right? So you can be a bar hopper, by doing these happy hours where you show up with your favorite drink. And here's the great thing. You can actually, if you don't want to drink alcohol, you bring your kombucha or whatever floats your boat, right? So that's the thing. Book clubs, you can read books now. You can meet together on Zoom and talk about the book. There's no reason. If you like board gaming, a lot of the board games, like my favorite one is Settlers of Catan, is available online, and you can do social gaming. Now, I'm not saying video gaming with a lot of other people you don't know, but with people you do know. Start doing that. It's a great way, for example, to replace unwinding rituals that you might have had at work. And then binge watching TV together is also possible. You set up a group chat, and afterwards you get together for a what the fuck conversation about what just happened during the Red Wedding. All right. So I could go on with a lot of those ideas. The point that I have is try them out and you'll be surprised how well that works. So all of that really sounds simple. So why are people struggling with this so much, right? That's sort of a good question. Well, there's a good reason for it. And there are three of them. I'm going to go through this real quick as we're looking at things. Number one is there are three barriers. The barrier number one is I don't know how to reach out to who I should reach out to, right? And the solution that I'm going to offer here is a very simple one. And that is you will start thinking about people throughout the next week. And whenever you do that, start writing them down. And I don't care where you write them down. It could be in your Notion. It could be in your Evernote. It could be on a spreadsheet. It doesn't matter. Write them down and create a list. It's a call list. It's a reach out list. And then whenever you come around to reaching out to people, you just start working from the top and you reach out to these people. The second question is one that I think a lot of people struggle with, and that is that they don't overcome the problem of urgency versus importance. Here's the big issue here, is that relationships and feeling connected is absolutely critical, especially in these times, and especially if you're learning from working from home, but it's almost never going to be urgent. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you guys had to pry yourself away to come to this presentation because you have a lot of urgent things going on. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to overcome that. And there are two tips that I have for you. Number one, schedule a regular time to do check-in. Replace your, take some of the budget you freed up from not having to commute to work anymore to say, you know what, I need to do that for my connectivity, my feeling connected hygiene. And it's half an hour a day for that, where you basically are dedicated to reach out. It becomes part of your job description. The second thing is the most powerful tip I have in all of my coaching, and that is leverage what we call action triggers. Action triggers are things that allow you to establish a new habit on the back of an existing habit. Here's how this works. Let's say you want to reach out to one person a day and you just want to do it as a habit. You want to establish it as a habit. Well, most of you guys probably have the habit of getting a cup of coffee at one point in time during your workday. Well, this is what you do. That's a habit. You don't plan to do it. You think of coffee and then you want to go get coffee. So before you go get coffee, force yourself to do this one reach out and reach out. And then basically once you've done that, you are allowed to reward yourself with this coffee. If you do that for 21 days or longer, there's a very good chance that the reach out habit is establishing itself as an independent thing. Right, let's move on to to barrier number 3. What do I send? Right, and that's where a lot of people struggle, because they're like, well, I don't know what to say. The problem is I don't have a lot of time to get into it. So I'm going to give you one thing. We came up as part of our coaching with this concept of the 5 freebies. And I'm going to give you one of them. It's my second freebie. The freebies are nothing else but things that I can guarantee you. You could sit down with me, you could give me a name, and you could probably find one thing you could do out of these 5 freebies. As long as you have a decent enough relationship, it is guaranteed to work with every person. And so they're easy to do. You don't have to think hard about what to do. You can just reach out. Because here's the thing, what I don't want you to reach out to is with the obvious right now. How are you doing up? How are you holding up with all this coronavirus stuff? The people are going to be sick and tired of it. And our job is to basically distract them a little bit from that. It's hard enough to live with all these uncertainty and the fear that comes along with it. So what can you do? One freebie is the simple act of showing gratitude, right? By saying thank you. And so when you think about somebody that you haven't talked to in 6 months or a year or longer, ask yourself, what am I grateful about this person? And then ask yourself, do I really feel that? And if it's genuine, basically reach out and let them know, preferably via a video message, but an email will do as well. All right. And with that, I'm coming slowly to the end about how we can be more social, but wanted to leave this part with the most powerful habit I actually have. Of 12 years of teaching how to basically manage relationships, this thing is hands down the most powerful one, because it's easy. You can do it multiple times a day, and it's powerful beyond belief. And it is simple. It is silly. It is common sense, right? When you think something positive, whenever you think something positive and you genuinely believe it, then voice it. That's the simple habit. And so, for example, it could be that you're getting an email and you think that person has written something really well, or articulated something really well, and you think, oh, that's really well articulated. We think these thoughts all the time, multiple times a day, but we don't do anything with it. It's a fantastic missed opportunity to make somebody else feel good, right? So start voicing it. Send them a video clip. Reach out to them. Let them know. It's like, hey, by the way, I just thought that you did a really good job on da, 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 da. And then be specific. Here is why, right? So that it doesn't feel like, oh, you did that great. Because that's as much as going to Starbucks and saying, how are you? And then being surprised when they say, I'm doing well. You're like, wait, what? Where's that coming from, right? So positive alacrity is something that is a very powerful, simple concept, and it's based on the simple thing of just voicing positive thoughts when you have it. So with that, I'm going to actually move over and spend a little bit more time on the second success driver. And that second success driver is like, how do we stay productive? We're going to get into some hardcore working from home stuff. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about how to set yourself up. And here's where you see that I'm going to do this relatively fast because you'll know most about it. But the key point I want you to learn or come across or understand is this: basically, home is the place where we either socialize, where we relax, where we recuperate. And if that's true for you, then your home is also guaranteed to be full of triggers that actually subconsciously will drive those behaviors to come up, right? So what that means is when you work from home now for extended period of times, we have to keep up your energy levels, your motivation for long periods of time. The odds are simply against you. It's hard because there are tons of triggers. For one, it's the image. For the other, it's the smell. And they will cause you to behave in ways that actually make you want to do something else but work, right? And so what we're going to talk about now is how can we shift the odds of making that happen? First, by figuring out what the what the setup can look at. And I have 3 tips for you guys here. Number 1, create a dedicated workspace, right? Preferably in its own room, if you can do that. One way you can close the door. If you can't do that, find a desk somewhere in an open space, but make that be your bubble. And even if you can't do that because your space is too small and you're sharing it with a family or something, look, do it as a temporary setup. The second thing is be very mindful about your ergonomics, right? Do not work on your laptop like this. It is going to wreck you within weeks, even if you're young and spunky, right? So what you need to do is make sure that like this is sort of like the healthy ergonomic setup. Try to basically get yourself to sit that way when you do that. And there are various ways from doing it. If you can have a up and down standing desk, use that. If you can't get that, get a riser. If you can't do that and you really have to hack it, it's not a problem. Go and get a bunch of books and rise the display up. I recommend having a secondary display if you can have it. If you have one flying around, use it. And if you don't have that, put your display put your laptop on top of those books and use an external keyboard. And what I like is a vertical mouse, as you can see here. Why? Because it turns the hand from this to this, and that's way more natural for how our arms are built and healthy. Last but not least, use good lighting. 2 types of lighting that people should always have, in my view: the very bright white 6,400 Kelvin light. If I turn around, you can see how my setup is. It's right here, very white. That's good for creative thinking, but also have a little bit more of the yellow light. I can actually try to turn it on right now, and it makes this whole thing a little bit more lighter. Go and try to set that up in some way or other. All right. So the next thing that we need to really talk about, and this is really, really important, I think the most important section of all of my talk today, is you got to go find your rhythm. And to find your rhythm, I'm going to step back real quick for a moment. To find the rhythm, you have to do 3 things. Number 1, you need to understand what your modes are. Number 2, you need to learn to skillfully transition. And number 3, you got to bring structure to your day in certain time blocks. So let's go and work ourselves through it, and then you'll see what I mean, right? So understanding your modes is important because it's key to productivity. And why is that so important? Because we are now forced to take our work life and invite it into our home. We have no other choice because we have to stay and work from home. And so you're going to have 2 types of you existing, right? One is the work me, and the other one is the home me, living together, having to work, having to live at home. And the problem is that we are probably getting into this concept of constant switching between those modes, for all sorts of reasons. And so the key to successful remote working is to become aware of what mode we're in at what time. And so what I want to do is walk you guys through how we do this best. And the best thing we can do is transition carefully and be very consciously about how we're doing this, right? And in the past, those transitions were managed for you in a certain way that you commuted to work, right? I know that, for example, Mark likes to ride his bike to work, who's here today. And so during that time, we have a nice buffer where we can let go of the home me and get into work me, and so on and so forth. Where at home, you have the world's shortest commute of like 10 seconds, and you don't have that transition anymore, so you have to become proactive. Let's talk about how we do this. The most powerful thing you can do is just simply boost your awareness around knowing when you are transition, knowing in what mode you're in. And when you do that, what you will notice is how often you are actually switching. It's going to be like crazy. Oh my God, I'm switching all the time. And so what you have to realize, every time you switch, you are paying some switching costs, right? They're significant, and they are causing friction, and they are going to cause your work day to go longer and longer, just as I described earlier. So the question is, how can you become more aware? I have 3 tips for you guys. Number 1 is be aware of the potential triggers, right? become cognitive of when you see something that it causes you to think, coffee, or sort my laundry, or something like that. And the more you're aware of those triggers, the more you can recognize that trigger is firing. And when you have awareness, the powerful thing about that is you can choose to, you get it. Whenever we have awareness, we get the choice to react in some way. If we don't have awareness, we are going to pursue the automatisms that happen. So trigger number one, be aware of your triggers. Number two, physical movement. If you're getting up, there's a really good chance you're about to transition from work me to home me, right? Now, you might be going for a call of nature. That's perfectly fine. That's not necessarily a transition from work me to home me. But if you're getting up to throw a load into the laundry real quick, you're probably in home me mode, right? So movement. And then the third tip that I have is be aware of your feelings, right? If you're feeling strongly about procrastination right now, if you're feeling unhappy, if you're feeling alone, all of those things will make your body, will make your system try to find a solution to the aversion you have of those feelings, and they'll probably make you switch modes. All right, so be aware. That's the best tip we have. Another very pragmatic tip is portal technique, right? Be aware that you're transitioning into the work me when you're walking through a portal. For most, there might be a door that leads to the place where you set up your workspace. Great, use that. But for some who don't have that, just find an edge at the office, or a spot at the edge of your office that when you see it triggers the, oh, I'm doing a transition, I'm going into work mode. It could be a virtual line that is an extension of your kitchen table. It could be the corner of your kitchen table. I don't give a rat's ass, to be honest, what it is. I just can tell you that this is actually very, very powerful. And then whenever you cross that portal, you are making a transition, and you can make it a lot more consciously. Morning routines, extremely powerful. We should, you should do them. So when you sit down in your just arrived as work me, run a morning routine that basically helps you structure your day. You move from, and then you use what I call a checklist. In fact, in one of the companion pieces that we have, there is a checklist for it in it that we're going to be sending out to you. Use whatever works for you and run it consistently. And what it helps you is basically proactively transition into work me. It'll force you to focus on those things that matter most. And you do all of that, please, before you check email in the morning, because email is a hell of reactivity, and you want to become more proactive because it's going to make you more productive and more successful working from home. All right. So you already noticed that I'm getting more and more into the notion of structuring your day. The first tip there could also, the morning routine is already part of that. And so let's talk about what you can do and how you can do structuring your day in the best way, by starting off with the most powerful productivity principle out there. If you look at Getting Things Done by David Allen, if you're looking at even Stephen Covey, they're all based on one simple principle. You can go all the way into their complexity. Also, you can keep it as simple as I'm saying, and that is, you will be the most productive version of yourself if you always know what to work on next. And that next thing is the most important, not urgent, most important thing you can work on. If you do that, you will be more successful. I'll give you an example of how this actually looks like in how we train our clients around doing this. We love Asana, big shout out. But you can use any kind of task management tool, to be honest. And then what you do is Asana has this My Task sections, and there it has a today and it has a upcoming section and so on and so forth. And in the today, you put those things in an order of priority of what you want to work on today. Right? And then the top task is the only task you're going to be working on next. And if you sort that in an order of priority and an order of importance, by definition, you're going to become simply more successful, more productive. And that's particularly important when working from home. I'm going to move on. Sorry that I'm racing through this because I have so much good content here that I want to share. The other thing you really need to do is be aware of matching the type of work you have to the energy levels you have. Work horribly at that. And everybody has a certain productivity cycle where your creative energies are peaking and are completely in the basement, right? So if we look at the early bird, that's 90% of us. You know, we wake up and we have a phase of 2-3 hours where we can actually get really, really creative. So use that time to do the thinking time, the proactive time that you should do. After a while, your brain gets fried. And then we feed our body with food, and all of our blood drains into the stomach to digest that. So we're going to be horrible. That's a great time for meetings, right? And then there's a second wind very often for most of us in the afternoon. So use that well. And some people even have a third wind thereafter. The next tip I have is the Pomodoro Technique. I think most of you guys have heard about this. It's very simple. It's like set up a timer. It can be a beautiful clock like this one, or it could be just simply on your cell phone, a timer, 25 minutes, it runs down. In those 25 minutes, try to basically chop up your work in such a way that you can get a certain amount of work done. And then you take 5 minutes of a break, and then you do it over and over again. But see, it's one way of doing it. Find your own rhythm. You know, you might be good at doing 90-minute chunks of work, then you give yourself 50 minutes of a break, or 50 minutes and 10 minutes so that you fill out the hour, and that might fit better with a person who has also a scheduled calendar. All right, so good. Let's jump into my third tip from working from home and being successful that way, and that is you need to be aware of moving. You have to prioritize movement. And there are 3 things that I have for you. Number 1 is micro stretching. You know, one thing that you will learn and then soon again forget is the benefits of working from home are actually very profound. And one of the things is that you can do at home things you can't do at work, like doing stretching or doing a 5-minute body weight workout right after a meeting. It's a great thing to do. I could do it right here if I wanted to. And it's going to really, really help you feel energized, feel creative, gets your blood going. And those are all really good things for staying productive. Another thing I recommend is like literally try to walk 3 times a day around the block. For those that are like me in a shelter in place order, walking is still allowed. Just keep a distance to other people. And obviously avoid groups and don't do it in group things. But when you do run across somebody or you pass somebody, try to use positive alacrity by smiling at them at a minimum, or saying something positive that you noticed on them. Maybe you noticed their glasses and you just walk past them saying, those are nice glasses. And by the time you're done, you're already 10 feet away, and that's it. But you are going to make that person's day. That person will feel connected. And it's also going to make you feel good. And those are the small little tips you have. And then finally, work out remotely. It's easier than you think. There's YouTube with great yoga classes, really good ones. My favorite one is the one with Benji. I mean, there's a woman with a dog, and the dog always shows up in the background. It's kind of fun. But there are also really nice bodywork workouts that you can do. You can have workout apps on your phone if that's your thing. And of course, you can set up group workouts with your friends. Absolutely possible. You'd be surprised how easy it is. I'll tell you a story. I have had the privilege of working with a personal trainer for over 2 years. Probably got me into the fittest state I've ever been. And the funny thing is the guy lives in Spain. And so it absolutely works. I have no doubt about that. All right. So the last thing I have to tell you about is boundaries. And you need to create them when you're working at home, because you're going to be around people that think you're home, but you're actually in work me mode. So they're seeing home me because they don't know work me. And so they're going to try to disrupt you, and you need to avoid interruptions. And the reason you have to avoid them is because there's a pretty significant cost for it. It takes a while to get concentrated, right? And to do the work you need to do, right? And then a disruption comes and you go back to 0 instantly, right? And so all of that green is lost time, is the switching cost that you see in this graph. So try to avoid it. The tips I have for you here are very, very simple. Set up rules and communicate them to the people that are most likely to avoid them. To disrespect them. say, hey, look, you know, for example, physical signals would be very good. If I show you right now in my office, this is my door. As you can see it, it's closed. Everybody on the outside knows they can't come in until I come out. I'll come out often enough and then they can talk to me. If you don't have the luxury of having an own room, what you can do is, you know, use your headsets. When they're on, do not disturb me unless the world is burning down, right? And if you want to get really creative, have your kids create a little flag post with a red flag, and you can put it up. When the red flag is up, do not disturb, right? There's so many interesting ways to do that. If people do disturb you, educate them at that point in time, appease them with whatever they needed, but then ask them to not do it in the future. And you'll be surprised how fast people will adopt to that. Okay, so we're getting very close to everything that I wanted to share with you guys. Before I let you guys go, there are a few things that, so stick around, that I want to say that are very valuable. Number one is, look, one last thing is we're all facing this really crazy uncertainty. And some of you guys might actually have bouts of fear and maybe even sleeplessness. And so I can't really help you with that, but I can tell you what helps me. And that is a absolute safe belief that this shall pass, right? This will pass. We will prevail. Humans are going to survive this. We as a nation will survive this, and we're going to come out all the better. I'm absolutely certain about this. And then the other thing you can do is, like, if things are driving you crazy, focus on those things that you have control over, right? There are things that you have control over and there are things you don't have control over. So focus on those that you have control over. And everything that I delivered today are things you have 100% control over, right? So try them out, make them happen. And then the last tip that I would have for you is, actually, before I tell you about this and the next slide, is I have one more poll. I would love you guys to tell me how valuable was this. Did we do a good job in putting this together? You got to know, we cranked. Friday of last week, there was not a single slide for this. I'm curious to see, how do you guys feel? Would you recommend what I did here? Could you please fill out the poll? Please all answer. This is really important for us. It's the way you can give us back. And while you guys are filling out the poll, remember this, right? There are so many benefits from working from home, really, right? You're going to have a more flexible schedule. You have the world's shortest commute. You can have more meaningful interactions because you have to be thoughtful and proactive about it, right? You have the things around you that you like. There hopefully will be less distractions. You know, hey, we're doing something good for the climate, at least, by traveling less. And you can do things at home that you can't do at work. Live those liberties up. It'll be amazed. I see so many people working from home, and then I'm asking, are you doing those things? And they're like, no, but I should. So I'm telling you, do those. So good. I'm going to keep this open. We're going to send out for everyone, all the people that are still here, we're going to send out the message, the email with all of the companion information to it. But I'm going to ask Connor to come back online and see if we had any questions. So go and ask some questions you know, into the box, and Connor is going to read them to us. I'm going to stop sharing the slide deck here so that you guys can see me in full force. All right, Connor, what do you got?
All right, we got some good ones that came in over the course of the presentation. I want to start by jumping back to the water cooler conversations. You mentioned avoiding small talk. Now, someone's asking, how do I avoid small talk? How do I have more meaningful conversations with people?
Good thing. So I really want to put another session together for them. If you know, shoot me an email if you think this would be really relevant. It's easier than you think. There are several things that you can do. One is start asking questions that are leading to deeper conversations. Questions that are related to professional challenges and questions that are related to personal interests and passions. What we maybe can do, Connor, what do you think, is we can put the 2 catalogs of questions we have also in the companion. And I see a show of hands, rising hands, of anybody who'd like that, be great. Awesome.
Cool.
So that's one way to do it. The other thing you can do is find common ground with people. And if you find common ground, like you know, things you enjoy doing, especially, you know, around reading and things you enjoy doing that you can do when you're at home, it's very, very powerful there.
Awesome.
What else do you
Good
got?
answer. Good answer. So I think you're going to be uniquely qualified to answer this one. Advice around working from home with kids. Now you've got kids stacked on top of you. How do you stay focused? It's a little bit harder to enforce rules and boundaries.
Oh my God, this is awesome. You know, one thing that I haven't told is that link that we're going to send out to this PowerPoint presentation has 35 more slides in it than what I was able to present. Whenever I had 3 bullet points on one page, there are probably 5 more, 6 more of those sessions there. And one of them is how to deal with the family in that sense. And so I'm trying to like see if I can easily pull it up, but I think it'll take too much time. So I'm going to answer real quick. So first and foremost, this is a great opportunity to have actually really meaningful interactions with your kids, as long as they're old enough that you can be with it. So number one, try to use a mindfulness practice of being fully 100% present with your kids when you are with your kids, you know, and be happy and thankful that you have more time with it. Do not, number one. Number two, establish within your firm an understanding that kids running around in the background or disturbing you is absolutely normal, and never ever apologize for that, because we shouldn't. It's actually a benefit. I just had a call with a client in South Africa, and the kid shows up, and I, on my second call with him, get to know his kids and had a nice chat. It made for a better experience for me and for everyone. Number three is the water cooler conversation. Make it have with your kids. It's the biggest gift you're going to get. Go out, take a break, and check in with what they're doing and have a meaningful conversation with them as far as you can. Yeah, if they answer with the 1-syllable words, that's fine, but still use that time. So there's a lot you can do there. And then the other thing I can only tell you is my wife, my family, and we in August got back from a world trip, and we had to do homeschooling. And all I can do is, it's easy in your think, give the kids time to adjust, and you'll be blown away of how little they actually need to go to school to teach themselves. There is a certain age restriction to that. Our kids were 7 and 10, and we saw it with both kids. So obviously if they're preschool, it's a whole different ballgame. That's sort of some of the advice that I have. All right, what else?
All right, I think we got time for another. So we've got a great question from Sean Flynn. Sean's asking, how do you draw out people, I assume team members, who are more introverted by nature?
Oh, interesting. So before I answer that question, I want to ask you all a favor. If you don't mind, my email was on this deck. It's patrick@mindmaven.com. Could you shoot me some emails about what you liked, what you'd like to have more of, if it was a good presentation? This is the first time we gave it. It's our best first shot, but I think you guys can all help us really, really improve it. But we also want to know, what did we do well, and how did we help you? Because that's sort of the way I'm going to get my reward and feel connected to all of you. Okay. So back to your question, how to deal with introverts. See, the interesting thing with introverts is that they do like interacting with humans. They just love it to be very meaningful. So they hate networking, right? They hate going to networking events. They're the ones that are going to be like standing at the wall, waiting, feeling really guilty that they have to talk to somebody and they're not, and hoping that nobody comes and talks to them, that kind of thing. So what I would say is start conversations with them, find a way to open up a conversation, find a passion that they're interested in, preferably one that you have, so it's common ground, and then maintain a conversation around that topic. And as you have that conversation going, use that conversation to find other potential future topics in which you can segue into when the lifespan of that conversation is finding its end. And that way you can draw in introverts, and you'll be surprised that you'll see a very different version of the introvert who's actually going to start communicating about the subject matter, because now they're talking about a matter, they don't have to talk to you, and that makes that a little bit easier. I hope that was helpful. All right, and I think that's it, right, Connor?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple.
Want to send you guys all back? And yeah, people ask if there's a recording. We will send out the recording to everyone. Please do send me emails. I really would love to get them. I hope I wasn't too tired looking, but we worked many long hours to get this together. And we're really, oh, and the last thing that I forgot to say is we're going to probably repeat this at one point in the near future. Actually, next Wednesday, we're going to put the link of that session here in the text. You can see it, you can grab it, but we'll also put it in the email we're sending out. Share the word. We're not here to sell our services. We're here to basically help the US overcome the next big wave that's going to hit us, and that's the wave of loneliness. It's coming, and people are going to feel horrible, and we all can work together to ease the pain. So the more we can do it, the better. All right, and with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.